Gliscor is the new ground and flying type reintroduced into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Other than being known for being on Ash's team back in the Sinnoh region, this Pokemon is better known for a competitive Smogon OU staple that it is. Ground and flying hasn't been the worst for it. It's the same typing as Landorus-Therian and shares a 4 times weakness to Ice, which prior to Baxcalibur's ban, it would have been more of a problem. However, since then though, Gliscor has seen an uprise in usage, so much so that some people are starting to talk about it as more of a stranglehold on team building. Gliscor's stats are really solid all around, and you could say for a Gen 4 Pokemon, it's actually pretty well min-maxed. Defensively speaking, it's got the stats, especially physically defensively, and it's got decent speed tier for Gen 9. Gliscor's ability of Poison Heal is what really launches it into the competitive stardom that it is in, as this is an ability that lets it insta-heal every turn infinitely when it's poisoned, which is typically done by self through the Toxic Orb. Generation 9 is a bit unique for Gliscor as it lost a powerful move in the name of Roost. Roost is a recovery move that allows for further longevity for many competitive utility/defensive Pokemon, since they are the ones that are a bit more beefy, example being Corviknight. Gliscor is in the same vein as those Pokemon, serving itself as a defensive wall capable of stalling out the opponent. Roost was a viable option to help it remain longer. Still, nevertheless though, it still kept Poison Heal, and despite the huge nerf, Gliscor's got some new tools to play around with in Generation 9 with Terastallization, but most importantly, it's got new tools to play with, in most particular Spikes and Toxic Spikes. This is really crucial at a junction during this metagame, because since the release of Pokemon Home, hazards have been the strongest during the Generation 9 metagame, namely due to the release of Ceaseless Edge Hammerot. Gliscor also still has 2 key pivotal moves of Knockoff and EQ, 2 powerful moves that help keep offensive pressure on its side. Knockoff overall is a really good move that can remove items and fight off Air Balloon Goldango users as well, and EQ is an overall good move to have to hit many Pokemon for neutral coverage as well. Gliscor has been a problem both offensively and defensively. Defensively speaking, being a pretty good ground and flying type has had the resurgence of Ice Spin or Great Tusk, and because of this, the EV spread on screen helps it outspeed Tusk while being still defensively EV. The most common defensive Gliscor running around is a set consisting of Protect, EQ, Knockoff, and Toxic Spikes. I've already talked about EQ and Knockoff. Those are 2 solid moves to run anywhere, but with it no longer having Roost, Poison Heal has definitely been its only way of prolonging its presence on the field, and relatively speaking, as with many other Pokemon, you want to maximize their longevity and usability in any way possible, so getting free Poison Heals is very critical in the move Protect. Previously though, in prior gens as well, it was also a notable Stealth Rock user, and while that is great, the reason why Toxic Spikes have been even better, and even better than even Spikes itself, is because of the gameplay aspects surrounding Gliscor and Toxic Spikes in general, and when you combine them, it creates something that's astronomically hard to deal with. And before I go on to talk about Gliscor, if you guys are new to the channel and are enjoying competitive content, consider subscribing for more Pokemon videos just like this. It goes a long way and helps let me know you guys want more of this, and plus we're on the road to 10k, so any support would be greatly appreciated. But anyways, back to the video. Toxic Spikes offer 2 gameplay measures that Stealth Rocks could really never. Yes, Toxic Spikes can deal consistent chip damage on entry, but its long-term effects can be devastating when used correctly. When you switch out a Pokemon not a poison type into Toxic Spikes, they will unfortunately take on that toxic damage, and Toxic is a status that deals more damage the longer you're on the battlefield, and obviously who wants to deal with that? However, on the flip side, you could avoid the damage and switch into a Pokemon like Goldango, Gloking, Toxapex, or even Pheasantipede to A, avoid it in a steel type like Goldango, or B, absorb the Toxic Spikes on the battlefield and remove them from your side. But remember, Gliscor is actually a ground and flying type Pokemon, so be able to swiftly punish the opponent for trying to get rid of Toxic Spikes off the field. Additionally, trying to avoid it with Air Balloon Goldango doesn't always do it the right way, as when Gliscor can get a clean hit with Knockoff, a dark type move, things can spell doom pretty quickly for Goldango users. And combine that with another turn of Poison Heal to heal itself is just flat out annoying. Toxic Spikes is such a collateral move that really splits decisions for opponents' minds, and with that ground type stab to cover its tracks, it's no wonder defensively it sits pretty on the top. Gen 9's Terastallization also in combination offers another way to avoid fatal ice damage, for example from Tusk. Terra Water for defense is more common as it complements its weakness of water and ice pretty well. Terra Fairy is also another good option against Dark Dragon and common fighting type Pokemon as well. These sets have been more in common with hazard stack teams, as Toxic Spikes and Spikes in conjunction can pretty much call game in many circumstances. Defensive Gliscor has been probably the more popular one because of its just outright slight unfair gameplay, but offensive sets have also been giving people a run for their money as well. Gliscor, in case you guys don't know, also has another move in its arsenal that I failed to mention earlier, in that being Facade. Normally, most of you guys are used to seeing this on Guts Pokemon like Ursaluna, because Guts plus Facade is usually a deadly combo. However, Facade doesn't really need Guts to be good, it's more common with the Guts because Guts is complementary ability overall when it's used on certain Pokemon. Gliscor is rather a more interesting case. While yes, Facade does do more damage if you have the status of Gliscor actually is toxic with Poison Heal, which means rather than taking burn chip damage like every other Facade user, it has the option to still be relevant on the field with it healing itself. Already it's very promising, but where Gliscor starts to really separate is in the move of Swords Dance. Swords Dance is capable of raising the user's attack stage by 2 stages. Now, okay, I know in the past this is a fairly commonly used by Gliscor, and it's not really rather that uncommon, but what makes this really unique is the addition of terastallization, as I mentioned before. With it now being able to Terra, it is now able to, in addition, to provide a 1.5 stab multiplier to its already +2 boosted Facade. This is a massively powerful move that can threaten a lot of Pokemon in the metagame, and while Goldango does seem like an obvious check, it still has moves like EQ and Knockoff to run alongside it if it need be. An excellent transition, in fact, if your opponent happens to go for an Ice Spinner, but you'd rather Terra than normal and dish out a powerful Facade in their surprise. Is it as popular as defensive Gliscor? No, and in my opinion it has to do with something being essentially easily able to pick off with priority moves. Vacuum Wave, Blood Moon, Ursaluna, Mach Punch, etc. It is now less formidable against those moves, which in the long run can help dwindle it down much easier. Normal, while being good offensively for Facade, its defensive coverage is now also lost with it no longer being ground and flying, and it really puts in a bind if it's not careful. 95 speed is also not the greatest in the world, especially in a generation that has a lot of power creep, and that can really put it in a corner, as there are plenty of Bene Pokemon that can thoroughly outspeed it and kill it before Facade comes into play. Usually these Gliscor aren't really interested in investing in much other than HP and speed, which also makes it less durable and defensively invested as the defensive Gliscor sets that I mentioned earlier. Don't get me wrong, offensive Gliscor when put in a proper position can be executed in a beautiful fashion, especially if your opponent is still confused on whether you're defensively invested or offensively invested Gliscor, but compared to its defensive sets, it doesn't offer as much leeway once SD setup is gone. Gliscor, in my opinion, serves to be that annoying defensive wall, and from my viewpoint is having way more success doing it, especially with the addition of Toxic Spike. It's also mildly hilarious to me that Toxic Spike user is also other poison type's worst nightmare, because its ground type coverage in addition of knockoff just makes it insane. You can also make an argument that this Pokemon is as much or if not more valuable than Landorus-Therian, and that has mainly to do with Landorus-Therian not really getting any significant buffs and in general being pretty hard nerfed in this generation. Gliscor has definitely been a welcome addition in the Generation 9 metagame and has been clearly performing well, but what do you guys think? Is it too overpowered for this chaotic Teal Mask DLC metagame, or does it just sit right in OU? Comment down below your thoughts, and thank you to my members here on YouTube and on Patreon for the continued support. If you wish to be a member and support me even further on YouTube or Patreon, links are down below in the description if you wish to. And lastly, be sure to join the Chompy Discord in the description as well. It is an awesome community and you guys will really enjoy yourselves there. That is it for me. If you guys have made it this far, comment down below the bat emoji, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching as always.